What's going on, guys? Chuck in,
Chris.
and we are back once again with Titanic, the Cinematic Expedition. And today we are on dive 5, which this time we're going to do things a little bit different. You know, we spent 4 films watching the Titanic sink.
Yeah.
So we decided to, change things up a bit and watch it raise up. By doing so, we're watching 1980's Raise the Titanic. Of course, this is based on the Clive Cussler novel from 1976, I believe it was, featuring his, character. What was his name? Dirk Pitt. This is, he's had his character in his novels for quite a while, actually, but he's only been in 2 films. Raise the Titanic being the first appearance. The next one wouldn't be until, I want to say, sometime in 2000s with the film Sahara, starring Matthew McConaughey as the character. And both films, unfortunately, bombed. So the basis of Raise the Titanic is, it's more or less a kind of, it's Clive Cussler, so it's kind of a spy.
Yeah.
No, it's more of an adventure, because there was a whole deal with spies finding, nuclear. It's a whole lot to go through, honestly. It's kind of a mess in the beginning. I don't really quite get what we're doing, because we come across a spy who discovers a dead body in a Russian mine somewhere in Siberia, I'm guessing. I can read through the Wikipedia thing, but I'm not going to. But overall, the main thing is you find out that, America is creating this this defense system. I can't remember what it's called.
It was what was it called?
Oh, I'm trying to remember.
Civilian.
I know there was a whole name for it, and I can't remember what it was called now, and it's not written down here at all that I can find. But anyways, there's this whole defense system, but in order to work it requires this element called Byzanium, which is no one's ever heard of.
Not really many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But apparently, spies during the atomic war, during the
World War One, roughly around that time.
Yeah, actually,
before, because
we're finding down this mineral, and somehow, long story short, they were trying to seek it and bring it across to the country, and they got snuck aboard the Titanic. So they hired Dirk Pitt to basically head this expedition to go down and try and salvage this mineral from the Titanic. In essence, because no one can't dive down there and no one can go there and get it because of that, they're going to, as the title implies, raise the Titanic. Okay.
Here we go.
For years, I always heard of this film, and I mean, admittedly, and this is kind of a Chris will tell you, when you hear that title, that premise, it just sounds ridiculous.
Why?
Well, not so much why. I mean, because honestly, it's not like it's unheard of. I mean, you hear several stories for years. People were trying to put money together to try and find some salvage at Titanic. They figured they could raise it. Yeah. All kinds of crazy ideas. Wasn't in that book? He got a book for Christmas. Was from Kim.
Yeah.
Wasn't it talking about how they were discovering the Titanic and all the different attempts of the...
Yeah, I still...
Yeah, but I think that was about... But you could look into it. There's so many weird, stories of people...
It's called Sinkable, by the way.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's not like it's
a new concept.
No, it's been talked about for decades, over the last century. And I guess it's hard to come in at it because... for myself, I come at it when I first heard this title. I mean, it's 1980. We're still 5 years before Robert Ballard will actually find the Titanic.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear about this movie long after all the Titanic stuff, and I'm thinking, well, the idea of raising it from that depth, I feel like it would just crush it anyways. I don't know if it's even possible to do.
It is, because of how fragile it is.
Well, of course, in this film, the ship is in perfect condition. But besides that, that's my thought. What were your thoughts when you first heard of?
I was like,
raise the Titanic.
Because I remember seeing that one clip where it's just like the Titanic actually being raised out of the ocean.
Very famous clip from the film.
And I just have kind of frowned upon it. Because don't judge a book, don't judge a book's guy. Don't judge a book by its cover. But I did that anyways because I just did not see reason. I think again, I just kind of frowned upon it. But then again, I actually tried we kind of caved in. Well, we did this entire thing, and then we watched it, and it was like, yeah, it's not that bad, honestly, in hindsight.
Yeah, the first time I saw this film was actually on YouTube. Just scrolling through, I found it. I had to watch it on YouTube, and it's not bad actually. It's really not. I don't think it's favored upon very well, but it's like I said, it's just and really it's an adventure. Spend most of your time going down there. They're trying to find the Titanic, or sweeping back and forth. Suspense isn't really a thing with this film, except maybe two key scenes, and both involving submersibles. Which, interesting enough, there's spoiler alerts if you've never seen this. There's a scene where one submersible actually implodes, and it's kind of relevant considering what just happened. It was like last year, the end of the year before, whatever,
last year,
with that Titan submersible imploding at the wreck of the Titanic.
I think it was 2023, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just 2 years.
I know, right? It says 2025 now when we're doing this. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of relevant. Then you have another issue where they basically
things they're using to make the Titanic raise up.
Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Before we get
once they find the ship, and they had this whole idea of, because they're talking about you have a press conference. By the way, this stars Jason Robards, Richard Jordan, and David Selby. They're like the three main characters. Which Jason Robards is like an admiral in the Navy. Richard Jordan is was a Dirk Pitt, his name again, and David Selby being a scientist who's
came up with the defense mechanism.
Yeah, he's the one who created the defense mechanism. Which I really wish I can remember the name. I'll put it right here. But so they talk about, well, it's got a hole. That's what caused it to sink in the first place. How are you going to expect it to float? And Jason Robards said, well, we're going to go in there and
slap on some.
Well, it's basically going to go in the hole and basically spray the foam into the the water safe, or
the gash
and fill up the compartments. And basically that will push the water out and everything and help seal that. Mm-hmm. So my thought was, okay, they're putting Fix-A-Flat in the Titanic, basically.
Yeah.
Because that's basically what Fix-A-Flat does. You spray foam in there, and it fills up the air and it seals the hole. It's a temporary solution. You'll never, think Fix-A-Flat is permanent because it will mess up your tire. Temporary only. Get a new tire. But that's, basically what they're doing. Spraying foam in the Titanic, seals holes, and then they're going to have these little inflatable raft type things around it, and they blow charges to loosen it, and then basically once it's up out of the bottom of the ocean, it will just raise up. And here's the thing that you got me. Well, of course, back to the second submersible, as they're surveying, where they're setting this whole thing up, it gets caught somehow. I'm not quite sure how, because really the visuals, it's just kind of, it's a lot of dark underwater shots, and
which kind of reasonable.
So that submersible, it kind of somehow got stuck by one of the funnels, or it was trapped. So they were like, okay, well, we got to raise the Titanic now to get they're running out of air. And like, well, this is like 2 weeks. Well, we got to move it up now. And and they made it seem so simple when they did it. And it's like, well, plane is charged, and then the Titanic is up, and that was it. And that's all your suspense, and there's not really that much suspense, because for like, we're working, we take us 2 weeks to do it. They did like an hour.
Well,
so, but those two submersible scenes are really all your suspense. You've got this whole side plot with the Russians, because this is 1980. The Cold War is in effect. Of course, this is also mineral that was found in Russia. So they want it back because they want to, they're hearing the words of this, nuclear, deterrent that America's got. So they want it because, the Cold War. And, because that's always like, we want it because we want it is for the betterment of protecting Russia and, nuclear deterrent, blah, 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 blah. And there's also the worry someone will get this, some other country will take it and make it a bomb. So this is your big MacGuffin, is this Byzanium. Everybody's after this Byzanium, and that's the big thing, along with raising the Titanic. So what are your overall thoughts after watching the film? I know he was dreading going in it because I said the premise to him, this is this ridiculous, which I get, because that's kind of my thought when I first saw it too.
Yeah.
But after watching it, sitting down, and what are your overall thoughts on it now?
Actually, I think it's not that bad at a first glance. The acting's pretty good. Mm-hmm. I don't really care much for the suspense, and I kind of again, when the soundtrack was pretty good. was actually music in the good spots. But besides that, also I like how I said the acting and the kind of the storytelling too was pretty good.
Yeah, and I think also we've been spending. Like I said, we've gone through four different films of essentially the same story. Watching the Titanic sink, and it can wear on you for a while. You know, see how many different times and different ways it happens. So this is a nice change of pace. This is what I call the Titanic adjacent film. But yeah, I think it's a slow build. It's a slow burn. But it's a typical late 70s, early 80s filmmaking. That's what it reminds. It's and it's all about, again, it's an adventure. You're trying to get the Titanic. That's the whole point. Trying to get it before the Russians realize it's all secrecy and whatnot. So like I said, the suspense is not really there. I think maybe that's one of the things that hurt it. I don't know how the novel compares. I've never read any of Clive Cussler's novels. And I didn't see Sarah either, so this is all I know. But one thing that really does help it a lot is, like I said, the score by John Barry, which, John Barry's, he's got a very distinct, of course, very distinct style. But once I watch his movies, all I can constantly hear is James Bond, because he's so well known for, creating the James Bond theme and, this scoring a lot of his films. And actually, just before this, he did Moonraker, and I can hear a lot of John Barry scores all sound the same when it comes to James Bond, because he's got that very distinct, brass and horn sound which he uses, and not just but you can hear in other films. The 786 King Kong is John Barry's score, and he just has a very distinct sound, but it really helps set the mood for this, because it's got a very, I won't say dark, but what's the word?
Suspense?
Kind of suspense. It helps building up tension that's not really there. Possibly, but again, it's I had a word earlier when we were watching, and I've lost it now. But it did really help build the. Almost, it gives it some gravitas and has a dark foreboding feel to it against of what you're trying to do, and the magnificence of trying to, an absurdity, trying to raise the Titanic. So the John Barry score is very prominent and very good. And something I actually read here in the notes about that, and people say actually it was the most acclaimed aspect of the production, and considered by many to be one of his very best scores, which is interesting. Since the original recordings of the music have been lost, but Silver Screen Records, along with Nick Rain, who was one of Barry's orchestrators, commissioned a re-recording in 1999 of the complete score with the City of Prague, the Philharmonic Orchestra. So that's interesting that the original score was lost. So yeah, but it is definitely a very big strength of the film, and I think also the fact that really I know only a few actors in this film. Jason Robards being the big one.
Yeah.
Ann Archer has a small part. Alec Guinness, Sir Alec Guinness, Obi-Wan Kenobi himself, has a nice critical part where he's basically playing a survivor on the Titanic who gives critical information.
Junior officer.
Yeah, who gives critical information. He actually plays it very well. It's very pleasant to see Alec Guinness. So he's really good. And a small part as Michael Pataki, as one of the submersible captains. You have no idea who Michael Pataki is, but you see him a lot. He's a lot of B-movie films. He's a great character actor. He's props up a lot, but it's cool to see him in that role. The guy that played Dirk Pitt, I had no idea who he is. I just said his name a minute ago. Richard Jordan. He's a guy that looks so familiar to me.
Yeah, I cannot put my finger on it.
But I don't recall seeing anything. I have to look him up. I didn't really have time. But to me, I'm going to give myself away here. He kind of looks like Steve Johnson from Days of Our Lives. Patch. You throw an eye patch on this guy. It could have very well been an episode of Days of Our Lives with a race on Titanic. So this movie actually didn't do very well. It was released in 1980 on a budget of $35 million, and according to the box office, it only brought in $7 million. So yeah, it's been kind of forgotten about. And I don't think it's okay there? It's been thought of too well, which is a shame because I don't think it's really that bad a movie. I mean, and again, it's hard to look at it now when the ship has been discovered. You know so much about it. And you look at it and go, that's just ridiculous. Because you take away that aspect of it, it's an interesting watch. It's, nice little adventure. And I got to admit, the whole spoiler, they raised the Titanic, is a great scene. I mean, it can't just spoil it. They put in the trailer for crying out loud. The trailer is actually just spoiler heavy, honestly.
Yeah, very.
But again, you name your movie Raise the Titanic, I guess you're, expect people are expecting you to raise Titanic. But I mean, the whole scene where it actually raises up and then it's all with a John Barry score, it's actually all inspiring. It's really good. And then once you take yourself away from the fact that the Titanic looks brand new almost. Yeah. Well, it's rusted, but it still looks in one.
Yeah, and one fall is missing, but it's just like,
And then, there's a whole, towards the end where they're having helicopter land the Titanic, they're having meetings, people, or it's a guy set up an office in the Titanic. But
modernizing that Titanic.
Well, they're just using it in space. I'm like, is the structure and integrity of that ship really good enough for all that? And then you have the twist. Which again, spoiler alert.
Heavy spoiler alert.
So they get the ship.
Yeah.
Because all these clues basically, like Allegan's talked about, well, there was a guy who put him at gunpoint. He was holding his stuff. He went in his cargo hold. And, he basically just never left the ship. And he was, very important, trying to protect whatever was in his cargo hold. So we raise the Titanic. We do the whole opening of Al Capone's vault. You look that reference up, Chris. And but they pop open. They do find stuff.
The crates.
All these crates and the dead body of the guy. This cargo hold was airtight, so everything, no water didn't get it. So basically, the guy just suffocated and died in there. But they open them up, and all they find are boxes of gravel. None of the mineral. It's a dud. It's lost. So they did all this for nothing.
Yeah.
People died in the implosion talked about earlier, and that's it.
They put it in a museum.
What?
I can't put it in a museum.
Yeah, Indiana Jones. It belongs in a museum. Which is another cool thing when they show they're towing Titanic to New York. It finally made it and it docks, and it's actually pretty cool to watch that. That scene. Yeah, and so the scientists and Dirk Diggler, no. Dirk Pitt.
Dirk Diggler.
Yeah, look that one up too, Chris. Boogie Nights, great movie. Anyways, so they basically, what have we done? What's this all about? And they actually find another clue that what they thought was a person's name was actually a city. And they go to a cemetery, find this grave, and realize that the Byzantium was actually buried here the whole time.
And they didn't have to bring.
They didn't have to mess with Titanic. People didn't have to die. All that was for nothing. And then, they decide to just leave it there, safe away from mankind. So basically, the whole movie was for nothing.
I said that. You're like, nothing. You do all this. You have all this, all this plot. And then once you get there, you're just like, we don't need it.
Yeah.
Stephen sealed away. Nothing ever. Well, the only thing you can really build, again, as I said, the ship belonging to museum if it's been brought up.
Yeah. That's really that, guys. You can take a look at the saving graces. We did rescue the Titanic, so there's that. But the whole MacGuffin of the film was really nothing, like I said. And, there's a whole argument when Jason Robards talks to scientists, we weren't sure if we wanted to find it because, there's someone's going to want to make a bomb of this stuff. And we can't say it was always me for defensive purposes. Sure, the president agreed now, but,
later on.
Things change. You get new people in office, which is,
And even if the president stayed in there, it wasn't like...
You never know what could happen, So it's like, do we even want it in the first place? And that's kind of what the scientists like, we should... It's basically better to keep it away from, the hands of man, because we'll just screw it up like we always do.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes.
Ask Charlton Heston in Planet of the Apes. Look it up, Chris.
Why not the third of these so many things?
Damn you all to hell. Look it up. So, that's basically, this is actually kind of a quick one. There's not a whole lot. We can't really go on authenticity of Titanic because, none of it was authentic. The ship looked cool. Coming up. The model work is excellent. That's another thing. I do want to give credit to Matthew F. Leonetti, who was a cinematographer. This is our first film that was in widescreen. So a big scope. The visuals were beautiful. The all the scenes. I mean, there's real location shooting. I mean, the wide open vistas of glaciers and up on the ice, and then the whole ocean scenes. It's got a beautiful look to it. This is the Shout Factory Blu-ray, which has a 5.1 surround on, and it sounds great. It's a really good surround mix. This is old. They've had this one out for years. This Blu-ray DVD combo. Special features on here is the making of Raise Titanic, and then there's the trailer that gives everything away.
Yeah.
I believe this is still available. This is one that they've had forever. I don't think it's not gone on a print yet. So,
really.
And it's fairly cheap. This is one of their older discs. But yeah, I mean, it looks good. It sounds good. It's interesting. It's got kind of a slow pace.
Yeah.
But it's a product of late 70s, early 80s filmmaking, which is what it is. But I don't think it's as bad as its reputation or people will think it is. I think if you sit and give it a watch and take away your preconceived notions of what factually of Titanic and just look at an alternate universe and have fun with it.
Yeah.
It's not too bad. Yeah. And just trying to get mad at the end when it was all for nothing. So, any final thoughts on Raise the Titanic?
You can watch it if you want to. You don't have to.
Yeah, we're not forcing you.
I won't go through the script before you watch it. Yeah, but again, it's not the best, but honestly, it's not bad either.
Yeah.
It's not in that weird in between.
Yeah, and I think again, I don't have no time to go into it, but I believe there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that Paul's budget over. I think we had to switch of directors, and there's a lot of special effects work that was hard to do and accomplish. But overall, for what they did, I think it's not too bad. It's worth a watch. Is it the best? No, but it's not the worst either. By far, and I think it's fairly enjoyable. So, with all that being said, yeah, I think that's all we've got to say on Raise the Titanic. Again, fairly quick one, I think. When I edit it, probably not. So, if you enjoyed this, click thumbs up, share, subscribe, leave us a comment below. Let us know if you've seen Raise the Titanic. What are your overall thoughts on it? If you've read the book, I'm curious if you've seen the movie, read the book, what are the differences? I know that Clive Cussler was never happy with his film adaptation. I think after Sahara, they just said to hell with it because it just didn't do very well. I don't know. But it had Matthew McConaughey in the role. I'm sure that was fun. Or just say hi. We'll always take hi. So until next time, this is Chuck and
Chris.
And we will see you on the other side.